When I was about 7 or 8, one of my favourite TV programmes was Mission Impossible. Yes, they did have TV when I was that age, but it was black and white. Each episode saw the Impossible Missions Force take on a new, you guessed it, seemingly impossible mission. The instructions for the mission were delivered by a little tape recorder, generally hidden in some devious manner for the leader of the group to find. And once it had played its important message, it would self-destruct in 5 seconds. As the series progressed, the lead agent, Jim Phelps, gradually built up a team of agents that supported him in the missions. Perhaps even for the younger viewers of this video, this will seem more than a little familiar, given the series of films starring Tom Cruise that have picked up the Mission Impossible concept. So why am I reminiscing about a favourite TV programme of the 1960s? Well, the answer is that we're on a mission too, and perhaps there are a few similarities. Our mission instructions are recorded, but they aren't the subject of a self-destructing tape machine. They come to us from Jesus himself, having been recorded in the Bible. And Jesus delivered these instructions first to his own team of helpers, the disciples. Matthew records the event in the very last lines of his Gospel. As he described it, the disciples have just heard from Mary that Jesus has risen, and they go to meet him. This is what Matthew tells us. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." We call this the Great Commission, but I wonder if the disciples might have been forgiven the thought to cross their minds that this was an impossible mission. There were just 11 of them, and perhaps 100 million people on earth at that time, to say nothing of the Jewish establishment being very hostile to them, and their country being under Roman occupation. How could they possibly succeed? Well, of course, Jesus' teaching had been leading up to this. He'd been training his team of helpers for this role. There are so many things that he taught them through his spoken teaching and through his example, but the heart of this, for me, is love. He captured this in what he described as the Great Commandment. Again, I read from Matthew. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?" And Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbour as yourself." It's still a really big ask for the disciples, the idea that love for 100 million strangers could motivate them to risk everything. Surely you'd need to have superhuman love for that. Well, of course, that's just what the disciples were given. They were to be strengthened by far more than all Tom Cruise's IMF gadgets. They were given superhuman love by being filled with the Holy Spirit, a gift to match the size of the ask. It's a testament to what those first disciples achieved that almost a third of the planet's population are considered to be Christian today, over 2 billion people. Of course, that sadly means that 2/3 are not, so no time for disciples today to rest on their laurels. In fact, if we look at the situation in our own country, it may be that as few as 7% are actually practicing Christians. To rephrase one of Jesus' parables, that means that we are only looking after 7 of the sheep, and the other 93 are lost. There's a lot to do, and it can seem to us like a mission impossible. But take heart. Look at the scale of the task. It still looks a lot more manageable than that facing the first disciples, and look what they accomplished. So let's draw on the Spirit and try to do our part in spreading Jesus' message of love. This message will not self-destruct in 5 seconds.